Welcome back to my channel. I'm Serena Sayed, and in this live stream, we'll be going to the very latest news on the subject of Trump's latest action in Iran with the help of Israel. Let's have a look at the news. Let's dive in. I'll be looking at a range of sources of news. And I'll be very transparent about what I'm using. Furthermore, we'll be discussing, and I'm also live on TikTok. So, in case you're on YouTube and you fancied coming along to TikTok, please feel free to do so. For now, let's just get this set up and going. Okay, so Trump says US has begun major combat operations in Iran, urges Iranians to take cover. Sorry, take urges Iranians to take over your government, but also take cover. Early Saturday, President Donald Trump announced the US had begun major combat operations in Iran, confirming strikes near Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's offices. The US built up its military, including 2 aircraft carriers, to defend against Iran after months of rising tensions, according to the administration. Explosions and smoke plumes were reported across Tehran and other cities on February 28, including 3 large blasts in central Tehran. Iran shut down airspace and mobile services while Israel sounded sirens and closed its airspace as hospitals activated emergency protocols. Regional authorities cautioned that retaliation could target US military personnel, while Iraq closed its airspace and the US embassy in Qatar urged shelter in place precautions. Turning to Iranians, Trump urged, take over your government, while Khomeini warned of a regional war amid protests and renewed negotiations. So we're going to go to Reuters now to see what the latest is there. Thank you for joining on YouTube as well as TikTok. Let's have a sip of tea. No tea ASMR for you. Okay, so live US and Israel attack Iran. Trump confirms major combat operations. The joint strikes plunged the Middle East into a new conflict that Donald Trump said would end a security threat to the US and give Iranians a chance to topple their rulers. I welcome your thoughts on this, as we know that there is a desire for regime change, and the echoes of the Iraq war and other foreign policy actions can be felt. So I welcome your comments in YouTube as well as TikTok. So thank you so much for joining. So right here on I'm hearing from the Independent, a blaze has broken out at a luxury Dubai hotel during an Iran missile attack. Tehran has been launching retaliatory missiles after the US and Israel struck Iran early on Saturday. Okay, so news is coming in pretty fast, actually. I would say the pace of news and reports from the region has been quite steady and increasing actually in the last few hours. So let me know if I've missed anything, but I will try and do my best to bring those updates to you. I was about to lose one of the devices. Okay, you're back, you're standing. So here's a map. As you can see, this is where the airstrikes have hit Iran. Thank you so much for following and subscribing. I appreciate it. So there are some hotspots. You have hotspots not in a hey, let's go and travel. And the last thing you should be doing right now is traveling in this region. Not to minimize what's going on, but it has been advised for people to stay indoors and reduce travel if possible, avoid. So Reuters is reporting the latest. Let's have a quick look at the latest that has been published just 49 minutes ago. US and Israel strike Iran, seeking to topple its leaders. What we know is that the US and Israel attacked on Saturday, targeting its top leaders and calling for the overthrow of its government, while Iran responded with missiles fired at Israel and neighboring Gulf countries. So that's confirmed. Donald Trump said the strikes were aimed at ending a security threat to the US and ensuring Iran could not develop a nuclear weapon. I mean, the reality of that has been around for some time, so it's not glossed on me that this timing is a little arbitrary, or rather, this could have been a month ago, could have been 6 months ago. So yeah, it's not a new threat. Let's just put it that way. It's not a new threat. Um, Iran responded with missiles fired at Israel and neighboring Gulf countries. Trump said strikes were aimed at ending a security threat, ensuring Iran could not develop a nuclear weapon. He called on Iranian security. Trump has called on Iranian security forces to lay down their weapons and invited Iranians to topple their government once the bombing ended. Tehran has called the strikes, which began in the morning hours and hit targets across the country, unprovoked and illegal. Many have been arguing that this is unprovoked. Iran's Al-Alam television and Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, yet to be heard from by Saturday evening, was due to give a speech soon. Iran responded to the strikes by launching missiles at Israel and several Gulf Arab allies of the United States that host American bases. It promised a stronger response to come, with a senior Iranian Revolutionary Guards commander Ibrahim Jabari saying it had so far used only scrap missiles and would soon unveil unforeseen weapons, state television reported. Israel said it hit strategic defense systems, including a SA-65 aerial defense system located in the Hamansha area in western Iran, further weakening air defenses it had already damaged in strikes last year. Iran's defense minister Amir Nasirzadeh and Revolutionary Guards commander Mohammad Bakpour were killed in Israeli attacks, 3 sources familiar with the matter have said. Explosions rang out in nearby oil-producing Gulf Arab countries, which said they had intercepted missiles, and Tehran warned it would strike the region if it were attacked. The first wave of strikes in what the Pentagon named Operation Epic Fury. What is it with American officials needing everything to sound like a blockbuster movie? But okay, we are where we are. So the Pentagon has... Sorry, just had to get rid of a request on TikTok. The Pentagon named Operation Epic Fury mainly targeted Iranian officials. A source familiar with the matter said an Israeli official said Khamenei and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian were both targeted, but the result of the strikes was not clear. A source with knowledge of the matter had earlier told Reuters that Khamenei was not in Tehran and had been transferred to a secure location. An Iranian source close to the establishment said several senior commanders in Iran's Revolutionary Guards and political officials had been killed. Iranian state media said 40 people were killed in an Israeli airstrike on a school. Reuters could not independently confirm the reports. Thank you for watching on TikTok as well as YouTube. Trump says bombs will be dropping everywhere. In a video message published on social media, of course, Trump cited Washington's decade-old dispute with Iran and Iranian attacks, dating to the seizure of the US embassy in Tehran during the 1979 Islamic Revolution that brought the clerics to power. Trump, who had deployed vast US military firepower in the region, saying he had hoped to force Iranian concessions in nuclear talks, said the operation was intended to ensure Tehran did not obtain a nuclear weapon. The aim was eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime. Trump, has urged Iranians to stay sheltered because bombs will be dropping everywhere. But he added, when we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations, he has said. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the joint US-Israeli attack will create conditions for the brave Iranian people to take their destiny into their own hands and remove the yoke of tyranny. Iran's clerical leaders were already in a difficult position after mass anti-government demonstrations in January, which led to a crackdown in which thousands of people were killed, the worst domestic unrest since the era of the 1979 revolution. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the images up on screen. If you haven't already, please like the live on TikTok as well as YouTube. I'd appreciate it. Like it. If you haven't already subbed or followed, please do. We'll do some analysis and discussion as well, just going through the latest reports. Please do like the live and subscribe and follow on YouTube, on TikTok if you haven't already. So protesters had again taken to the streets in recent days in remembrance of those killed the previous month. Israeli military operations over the past 2 years have already killed some of Iran's senior military officials and severely weakened several of Tehran's once feared proxy forces across the Middle East. After Israel pounded Iran in a 12-day air war last June, joined by the United States, the US and Israel had warned that they would strike again if Iran pressed ahead with its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. The threats were backed up in recent weeks by US military buildup in the region. Even as Iranian and US officials held nuclear talks, which is why people are arguing that this is really just out of nowhere. It's uncalled for. An Israeli defense official said the operation had been planned for months in coordination with Washington and that the launch date was decided weeks ago. Missiles fired at Arab Gulf states. Again, I'm reading from Reuters, the latest. Oil markets have been closely watching the standoff between Washington and Tehran to try and determine if supplies will be impacted. Please like, please follow, please sub on TikTok and YouTube. If we don't see signs of de escalation over the weekend, risk premiums could still drive Brent up by $10 to $20 per barrel when markets reopen on Monday, said George Leon, head of geopolitical analysis at Rystad Energy. Iran, the third largest producer in the organization of the petroleum exporting countries, pumps about 4% of global oil supplies, and a far larger share is shipped past its coast through the strait leading out of the Gulf. Iran's Revolutionary Guards said all US bases and interests in the region were within Iran's reach and that Iran's retaliation would continue until the enemy is decisively defeated. Iraq's Iran aligned armed group Kataib Hezbollah said it would soon attack US bases in the region. Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman called United Arab Emirates President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Ali Nahyan to discuss. The UAE state news agency have said loud booms sounded in Abu Dhabi, capital of the United Arab Emirates, an oil producer and close US ally, and several blasts were heard in the business capital, Dubai. Bahrain said the service center of the US Fifth Fleet, base for American naval forces in the region, had been subjected to a missile attack. Video footage showed a thick grey plume of smoke rising from near the island state's coastline as sirens wailed. Qatar said it had downed all missiles targeting the country and that it had a right to respond. Kuwait confirmed a missile attack on a US military base there. An explosion was heard in Iran's southeastern port city of Chabahar, Iranian state media have reported. Israel's military did not immediately respond to a request for comment on the report of a strike at a primary school for girls in southern Iran, where Iranian state media reported 40 deaths. In Israel, police said all holy sites were closed to visitors under national emergency guidelines after authorities announced several barrages of missiles were launched from Iran. Global airlines cancelled flights across the Middle East, and the attacks raised the prospect of oil prices rising. Some oil majors and trading houses suspended crude oil and fuel shipments via the Strait of Hormuz, four trading sources have said. Goodness me. There is quite a lot there, and the situation continues to be developing. I'm going to now go to on YouTube. You'll be able to hear this and watch this. It's the statement from Donald Trump.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world.
As you can see on the screen, there are images on YouTube, on the YouTube live of the targets.
It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take.
Okay, so you definitely heard that on the YouTube live and you may have overheard it on TikTok. I really tried to contain my expressions and my reactions to that. It's being framed as an action that is for the long-term benefit, the long game. Many who sympathize with the, I would say, many who only sympathize with the protests against the Iranian regime would, I'm sure, feel hopeful and optimistic about this action. I, on the other hand, whilst also sympathetic to those who are protesting and resisting the regime, the oppressive regime, know that these kinds of actors, political actors, geopolitical actors, don't act only or purely for the good of others. And regime change is just, unfortunately, a reality that we are all too familiar with if we have at all been tuned in to any geopolitical news and history in the last few decades. I'm just going to head over to the BBC now to see how they reported this. This is only 18 minutes ago, how the world has reacted to US and Israeli strikes on Iran. Let's just give this a quick refresh to see how we're doing, to get the most up-to-date updates. We know that the BBC, as other publications, are are not the most favored, let's say, as I respond to the comments on TikTok and on YouTube. Please like the live on both TikTok and YouTube. I'd appreciate it. And follow or subscribe if you haven't already. So I'm going to just have a quick look to see what they're reporting as I've gone through Reuters. I've used my ground news summary as well. So, how the world has reacted to US and Israeli strikes on Iran. American and Israeli forces have carried out airstrikes on cities across Iran in what US President Donald Trump has described as major combat operations. Trump has called for the Iranian people to rise up, as you heard from that clip, and government forces to surrender following what Israel called a preemptive attack, which, as reports have already documented, Benjamin Netanyahu saying that this was pre planned and signed off by Washington. In response, Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, said in a statement it was targeting US bases and assets across the Middle East as part of Operation Truthful Promise 4. This comes after weeks of threats and negotiations over Iran's nuclear program, which has existed for a long time. It's not new. Here is how the international community is reacting. Okay, so let's have a quick look. United Nations UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the military escalation and warned that international peace and security are being undermined. The quote, the use of force by the US and Israel against Iran and the subsequent retaliation by Iran across the region undermine international peace and security, he said in a statement. I call for an immediate cessation of hostilities and de-escalation. Failing to do so risks a wider regional conflict with grave consequences for civilians and regional stability. Question and a prompt for others. Who looks to benefit from regional instability and why? Back to the BBC report, an emergency UN Security Council meeting has been called for later on Saturday. Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi, who has been mediating this week's US-Iran nuclear talks, that's right, there have been mediated talks just recently, said he was dismayed. Here's a quote, active and serious negotiations have yet again been undermined. He wrote on X, telling the US that the strikes don't serve their interests or that of global peace. He said, I urge the United States not to get sucked in further. This is not your war. What do they say? The genie's has been let out of the lamp, right? Is that the best way to describe this now? How do you backpedal this? Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi blasted the joint US and Israel strikes as wholly unprovoked, illegal, and illegitimate. Thank you for the likes on TikTok and on YouTube. I appreciate it. In a post on X, he said that Trump has turned America first into Israel first, which always means America last. A joint statement by French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer also urged Iran to seek a negotiated solution. Well, they were in talks. So, the statement posted on X by the German embassy in London said the countries had consistently urged the Iranian regime to end its nuclear and missile programs, refrain from destabilizing activity. Well, you could call this destabilizing activity, and to stop the appalling violence and repression against its own people. Here's a quote: "We did not participate in these strikes," the three leaders said. And so we have the three leaders. We have Macron, we have the German Chancellor, we have Sir Keir Starmer, the UK. "We did not participate in these strikes," they said unequivocally. The three leaders said, adding they are in contact with international partners, including the US, Israel, and others in the region. Please do follow, subscribe, TikTok, and YouTube. Thank you. "We urge the Iranian leadership to seek a negotiated solution. Ultimately, the Iranian people must be allowed to determine their future." Isn't that just the perfect line to add at the end? Just to make sure that we are checking that box, people. Okay. We are making sure that we say, of course, it must be you, the people of the land, that we are here to do what on, right? To determine your future with our help, because we're going to help you. Help me help you, right? Saudi Arabia also condemned the retaliatory attacks on Bahrain, the UAE, Qatar, Jordan, and Kuwait, as it denounced in the strongest terms blatant Iranian aggression. Yes, well, you will get aggression. I mean, aggression with aggression, right? So it's you know what I always think about. I always think about those people who don't want the regime, who aren't protesting because they just feel so despondent, and therefore they're just trying to get through the reality of sanctions and a very low quality of life, which is not great, and they just don't want to be messed with. And then this happens. Let's continue. Thank you for the comments and the likes on TikTok as well as YouTube. I appreciate it. So, Saudi condemned the retaliatory attacks on Bahrain. The UAE, Qatar, Jordan, and Kuwait, as it denounced in the strongest terms blatant Iranian aggression. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia affirms its full solidarity with and unwavering support for the brotherly countries and its readiness to place all its capabilities at their disposal in the support of any measures they may undertake, the Foreign Ministry said in a statement. Russia condemned the US Israeli airstrikes. Sorry, Russia has condemned the US Israeli strikes on Iran, saying it was a reckless move. That it is. That it is. The attacks are once again being carried out under the guise of a renewed negotiation process, its foreign ministry said, referring to the US Iran nuclear talks, which took place last week. The Kremlin's statement also called on the international community to assess what it called irresponsible actions aimed at undermining peace, stability, and security in the region. A question on TikTok is saying, what if Iran destroys the US, Israel, and the USA's Middle East bases? Well, what indeed? I think arrogantly, those who have planned this action are not willing to consider that being a potential a reality. How the US can afford this, I don't know. So, I mean, great question. I don't know if there are any answers. I think they won't survive it if that's what happens. So the Kremlin statement also called on the international community to assess what it called irresponsible actions aimed at undermining peace, stability, and security in the region. Although the UK said it was not involved in the US-Israeli strikes, Sakir Starmer says British planes are in the sky today. In the Middle East as part of a coordinated regional defensive operations to protect our people, our interests, and our allies. Previously, Macron said the outbreak carries grave consequences for international peace and security and warned that ongoing escalation is dangerous for all. France also stands ready to deploy the necessary resources to protect its closest partners at their request, he added. Macron's statement also called for an urgent UN Security Council meeting. Don't you just enjoy it when this suddenly it's like, come on, shuffle our papers, grab our briefcases, let's huddle. It's like theatre, isn't it? Nothing happens. Macron's statement has called for urgent UN Security Council discussions. Germany said it was informed of the attack in advance, and that Chancellor Merz consulted with relevant security ministers. Kaja Kallas, the European Union's top diplomat, called the latest developments perilous. Perilous. The EU has adopted strong sanctions against Iran and supported diplomatic solutions, including on the nuclear issue, she said in a statement on X, adding she has spoken to Israel's and other regional foreign ministers. Protection of civilians and international humanitarian law is a priority. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's office said it would be consulting allies and regional leaders to support efforts to ease tensions. In a statement, Brazil's government condemned the US and Israeli attacks and expressed grave concern. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said his country backed the US, acting to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent Iran continuing to threaten international peace and security. UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk called for restraint and urged all parties to see reason to de-escalate and for a return to the negotiating table. Remember, a return to the negotiating table because they were already in talks. As always, in any armed conflict, it is civilians who end up paying the ultimate price, he said, before reminding those involved that protecting civilians is paramount under international law. Thank you for watching the live on TikTok as well as YouTube. Earlier on Saturday, Trump posted a lengthy video on his Truth Social website confirming US involvement. And he quite clearly said, our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime. It's imminent? It's imminent? He said, adding that Washington's aim is to ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. That is a risk now? Okay. He also said the Iranian people, told the Iranian people to remain in shelter, not leave their homes. That's right. You listen to someone else's leader. Okay. When we are finished, sorry, I just got facetious and petty and sarcastic at the end of the stream. It just happens. When we are finished, take over your government, Trump said. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. That's right. Use this chance now because I don't have the money and the forces and the resources to do it again because this is my last presidential term and we must get this done now because it looks good for me if I do this now in this presidential term. So it's needed for your generations. Go figure. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu similarly called on all Iranian people to throw off the yoke of tyranny and bring about a free and peaceful Iran. I was going to say, yes, let's use that advice for all, everybody. Throw off the yoke of tyranny and bring about a free and peaceful world for all. Thanking Trump, he reiterated his message. This is Netanyahu, that Iran must not be armed with nuclear weapons that would allow it to threaten all of humanity. Our joint action will create the conditions for the courageous Iranian people to take their destiny into their own hands. Does a regime change ever guarantee that? We're back, just me. I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Just me on here on TikTok as well as YouTube, and some comments we've had on YouTube, which actually didn't show up on YouTube but have on Restream. Hello, Hashim, who says Trump will start World War III. Also, Israeli Prime Minister is black, according to Hashim, is blackmailing Trump because he has all the Epstein's tapes of Trump doing heinous things, allegedly. Allegedly. I've got to say that. What else have we got? I can't make sense of that comment from Wesh Pashtun. We have another one from Vojak. I think that's it. Multiple outlets, including IRNA, the Associated Press, and Al Jazeera, confirmed that a girls' primary school in Minab in Iran was hit during the initial waves of American Israeli bombings on Iran. That was the part that I read out and that I felt a great deal of discomfort. At least 80 students reportedly killed. And this is an elementary school, which is aged between 6 and 12. Thank you, Vojak, for that update. Let's just have a quick scroll of the TikTok comments, because I've been lately doing a joint live. Thank you so much for watching this update as I checked the very latest reports on this latest move from the Trump administration and Israel. What are your thoughts? I do, of course, welcome them. I'd love to hear them. Somebody said Iran is a beautiful country. And this is a Jamaican person saying, I would rather live there than in dirty England. Uh, also, we have on TikTok praying for Iranian people, I guess, and everyone else who is affected. Absolutely. Yes, Mr. Trump. Wow. Somebody says, yes, Mr. Trump. President, sir, let's go USA. Okay. Some people are pleased with this move. So I welcome your thoughts in the comments whilst I am on the live, or if you watch the recording on YouTube. I do appreciate you. Just a little bit. Let's just do a little bit of discussion because I'm not fully satisfied actually with leaving it here. It feels a little bit, should we say, incomplete. And otherwise, I just feel like we've essentially just consumed a load of propaganda, and I have been instrumental in that. Palestinian says there's no such thing as a preventative strike. This isn't a street fighter. Okay. I'm just having a quick look at Reuters just to ensure that I'm completely up to date. It would be helpful. So if we have a little look at, I'm just going to have a scan of the latest, just so we can identify themes and areas of concern, especially areas for development in terms of ongoing conversations and things to reflect on. So we know that there is a joint military. We know there is a joint military offensive here, and we also know the retaliation is not isolated to one geographical area or one country, because we have the US and Israel both launching coordinated military strikes, which has, of course, significantly escalated the Middle East tensions. Um, Again, Pentagon naming it Operation Epic Fury. Strikes have been aimed at top Iranian leaders and key military infrastructure to prevent Tehran from developing nuclear weapons and to eliminate what has been described as an imminent threat, which is what I've been scoffing at. Israel has claimed to have hit strategic defense systems. And we have high ranking Iranian officials such as Defense Minister Nasser Zadeh and Revolutionary Guard Commander Bakhbur have been reportedly killed. The Supreme Leader Khamenei and the president are reported to have moved to secure locations. The Iranian state media reported 40 casualties at the girls' school after an Israeli strike. This could not be independently verified, but we'll just have to see. The Iran retaliation has been hitting various military air bases, and Tehran has vowed stronger retaliation, branding the attack as unprovoked and illegal under international law. The wider regional impact, we know explosions were reported across neighboring Gulf states, UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, and Kuwait, as missiles were fired. Some were intercepted by air defense systems, and you may have seen some footage of that online. I know I have on X. Civilian infrastructure and airspace in Israel has been affected, triggering closures and emergency responses. There indeed has been diplomatic and global fallout. The strikes occurred amid failed nuclear negotiations between Washington and Tehran, or interrupted as they were taking place. International reactions have been mixed. Some allied nations supported measures preventing nuclear weapon development, while others urged restraint and diplomacy to prevent further escalation. Economic and strategic consequences. The conflict immediately affected global oil markets. We covered that, raising concerns over supply disruptions and route stability. Let's have a look at some of the risk areas. As you know, I have more than one YouTube channel and more than one TikTok account. Not only do I do media and politics commentary, I also provide strategic thinking content on Serena's Playbook. You can check that out. And I have personal channels on YouTube and on TikTok. So, as part of my work, I do look at things a little bit more strategically and to see if we can identify any risk areas. So, if we are to look at the risk of wider regional war, we know that Iran's leadership has vowed a crushing response. Iran has labeled all US and Israeli assets in the region as legitimate targets. And they've raised the risk of an expanding conflict beyond the initial strikes. We also know that Iranian retaliation has already targeted multiple Gulf states hosting US troops. For instance, Qatar, UAE, Bahrain, and Kuwait, which of course increases the chances of direct clashes with local forces and allied militaries. Thank you for liking the live on TikTok and YouTube. Please do follow and subscribe. There is this persistent tit for tat in terms of exchanges, which could draw on regional actors and proxies, as we all know all too well, Hezbollah, Houthi forces, which could widen the conflict. Uh, and of course, there has been a breakdown in diplomacy. The talks that were taking place are no longer taking place. A significant deterioration of diplomatic channels between Tehran, Washington, and other global powers, effectively sidelining any chances for negotiations that had been going on earlier this year, 2026. The international mediators like Oman and the EU states have expressed deep concern, stressing that military action undermines peaceful resolution efforts. Thank you for the follows and subs. Thank you. A diplomatic breakdown erodes trust and makes future arms control, nuclear oversight, and crisis management far harder. So, without the diplomacy, how can you control the future of arms making, creation, any nuclear oversight, and any crisis management? Of course, you can't, since that's not what's sought. It's not what's sought in this scenario. Um, Big, uh, I'm not going to say the whole name, but Big says, I need to play GTA 6 before World War 3 starts. Yeah, go go ahead and play your games, of course. So as I was saying, if diplomatic channels have broken down, of course, therefore it's going to be hard to control future of arms, um, controlling it, and uh, any nuclear oversight. Um, but that's, of course, it's not sought because they don't want it, because there will be a regime change being planned, which we all know, we're all quite familiar with. Uh, we're familiar with the pattern. And then we've got global oil and energy security risks. Uh, it's quite a big one to keep in mind. Iran lies opposite the oil-rich Arabian Peninsula across the Strait of Hormuz. If you're on YouTube, you can see an image of the USS Gerald Ford departing from the Suda Naval base in Crete. Okay, so as we know, Iran lies opposite the oil-rich Arabian Peninsula across the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point for roughly 20% of global seaborne oil. Even threats to close or disrupt it can trigger large spikes in energy prices and inflationary pressure worldwide. Other market risks, markets are already showing risk premiums and volatility, and a longer conflict could push Brent crude well above typical levels, which would be affecting economies globally. Let's look at the usual unfortunate intended consequence and unintended consequence, an inevitable one. Humanitarian and refugee crises. Neighboring countries have been warning and are warning that escalating violence could destabilize Iran internally, potentially leading to large refugees outflows into Turkey, Armenia, and EU states, adding pressure on regional stability and social infrastructure. So, for those of you who are banging on about asylum seekers, refugees, wanting to maintain your sovereignty, do not therefore support these wars. Wider conflict also raises a risk of civilian casualties and displacement within Iran and surrounding territories. Thank you for liking the live on TikTok and YouTube. let's have a think about international norms, the conventions, the laws. Many countries, including Russia and several EU members, have condemned these strikes as being unprovoked or illegal under international law. And they argue that violating the UN Charter could set a dangerous precedent for preemptive uses of force, which this is. You could describe this as. This friction could deepen geopolitical divides, particularly between Western powers and others like Russia and China, over the interpretation of security threats and use of force. Sometimes I wonder Russia and China are just over there in their corners, just chuckling at the utter nonsense going on. But that's just me in this political soap opera in my head. Regional political fragmentation, Arab Gulf states. Yeah. So this is how messy this is going to be. So if you think about the Arab Gulf states and how they view Iran as a threat, they are they could potentially become wary that the US military action could backfire, and therefore it would hurt their own economies, their own security interests. So they're playing quite a risky game in supporting the US. There is also internal opposition within these countries, and that could grow across the region. Some states could push for de escalation, others could align more firmly with either bloc, which again could increase this political instability. I, I mean, if we were to surmise, right? Thank you again on TikTok and YouTube. If we were to, in summary, um, this strike from the US and Israel on Iran has not only heightened the immediate risk of further military escalation, but it also just openly invites broader geopolitical dangers, which would then be used as an excuse to explain away the failures, because this isn't intended. I mean, people say it was an unintended consequence. I mean, it's going to happen. So you could have energy shocks, you could have diplomatic ruptures, humanitarian crises, and again, the weakening of international norms. But these things are okay to risk when you are Trump, and those who want war, love war, benefit from war. Those who love and benefit from war. Last word. Thank you for the comments. Those who want this, right? If you were going to have a think about the military industrial complex, I think it was Eisenhower who warned in 1961. Let me change what's on the screen quickly. Let's have a quick look over here. Share this tab instead. Thank you for YouTube and for your TikTok patience on me sharing these clips and screenshots. I think it was Eisenhower who warned in 1961, that a permanent arms industry combined with government power would mess with democracy. But defenders will argue and continue to argue that the system exists for necessary structural reasons. The strongest, let's have a think about the strongest case for deterrence. If you have a credible military capability, it reduces the likelihood of a conflict. If adversaries believe you can respond decisively, they're less likely to attack. I mean, I don't. They're doing it anyway because they know you're going. I mean, I don't know who thinks that they can't. um, that the other parties, the adversaries, can't respond decisively. All of them can. It's just a case of who's going to run out. Modern weapons development is complex and expensive for states to improvise in wartime. I think we're in a different era now, technologically. The speed, right? The speed of creation. Um, People will argue that maintaining a constant industrial base will ensure readiness for this kind of thing, for conflict, which is why we know so much gets invested into weapons manufacturing. The large defense spending has, of course, advanced materials, aerospace engineering, and other technologies relating to AI and satellites, but at what cost? Again, it's that, oh, but we want this, and the cost is, yes, it will. It's like, I'm trying to think of a useful analogy. I was going to think about giving a toddler a weapon, be like, yeah, but they need to be prepared, but then they could use it and cause real harm. But it's not the right analogy. Maybe you can think of one. My battery's about to oh no, TikTok wants me to confirm that I'm human or something. Let's have a think about sovereignty in a fragmented global order. Thank you for the comments. Sorry, I couldn't see them all. So, in a fragmented global order, reliance on foreign supply chains for things like chips and missiles and satellites is seen as quite a national vulnerability, which is why we have allies. So, therefore, having a domestic defense industry ensures that we have a supply and that there's continuity in crises. So, again, from a systems perspective, you know that this is the reality of, okay, there could be war, could be conflict, we could have enemies, right? So, we've got to be ready because we're in that kind of a system. So, therefore, we have to maintain a skilled engineering workforce, we have to protect our technology. The list goes on. I mean, the list goes on. We could continue to um, look at the reasons for why we have to invest in weaponry and technology and our defenses, but it's all because of the risks that are self created, self imposed, or not imposed, but there are. So that's why we're in this. That's why we're in this in the first place. I'm going to end the waffle there. Thank you so much for your time and attention. The most important things that you have. So I do appreciate it. If you followed on TikTok, it's awesome. I'll do another live soon. If you've subscribed on YouTube, that's also awesome. And welcome back, subs. Welcome back, followers. I've appreciated your time and attention. Thank you for contributing to the respectable comments section. And if you, like I said, if you haven't already supported by following, by subbing, then please do so now. I'll catch you, YouTube, in the next one. TikTok, I'll hover for a few minutes.